Binary Friary is quite an eerie place, to say the least. Found just outside of Ballycastle in County Antrim, the place literally means foot of the Margie River. What's strange about this friary is that men and women lived here together, quite unusual for religious residences. Of course, they're all long gone now, the people that lived here, except one. Locals say that Julia McQuillan, otherwise known as the Black Nun, still haunts this place. So let's go and have a look around.
This small Franciscan friary was established in 1485 by Rory McQuillan, but it would later be captured by the MacDonald family. The grounds of Bonamargie would serve as a mass grave for the MacDonald men, women and children that were killed by the English on Rathlin Island in 1575. English forces, under the order of the Queen, were working hard to crush the power of the MacDonalds, and their friary here was occupied as part of that. The family would have their revenge though, taking it back in a surprise raid in 1584, led by Solly Boy MacDonald, an attack that would leave much of the friary in ruins. Its last recorded use for a religious service was in 1639 at All Hallows, when 700 Highland Scots were confirmed here, refugees escaping the Covenanters. It was here though that Julia McQuillan would live, by herself, after the building was abandoned in 1641.
Now, Sister Julia was a very fiercely religious woman with a fiery temper. She hated anyone that she considered to be a sinner, and that included her own sister, who, for whatever reason, she detested because of her behaviour in the past. Now, one night, the rain was pouring down, the wind was howling, and Sister Julia hears a pounding on the oak door. So she goes downstairs and answers it, and there, standing in this storm, looking extremely ill and on the verge of death, is her sister.
Her sister begged Julia to let her in and offer her shelter, pleading that she wouldn't last the night outside in the cold and the rain. Julia obliged and brought her inside, taking her up to her quarters and tucking her into her own bed after getting her out of her wet clothes. But this kind act didn't make Julia feel good. She actually felt sickened by the fact that she'd given aid to a sinner and invited someone that lived an unchristian life under her roof. She didn't feel comfortable staying in the friary with her sister, so she went outside into the rain to pray. And as she was doing so, she caught a glimpse of a bright light shining out of the window to her quarters where her sister was resting. Julia headed back inside, up the stairs to her room, and saw that her sister was in a much worse condition. She beckoned Julia close so she could say something in her ear, a statement in praise of God, her last words before she passed away.
Julia thought that the bright light that she saw in the window must have been God or an angel. She thought that if God could see fit to forgive her sister for her wicked ways, then surely she could as well. And it was at this point that Julia decided to change her ways. She'd become more humble, more forgiving. When Julia died, she gave instruction for her body to be buried at the entrance of the chapel without a coffin. And as a testament to her humility, she wanted people to walk over her body as they came into the chapel to pray. The grave was marked with a small Celtic cross, and this here is Julia's grave. But there were aspects of Julia's life that suggest a stranger side to her. It was said that she had the gift of prophecy and was known to make a number of predictions. She predicted that the two standing stones, one at Carnduff and the other at Barnish, would be joined together, despite being 4 miles apart. But during the construction of the old Ballycastle harbour, the stones were taken and placed next to each other. She predicted that one day boats would be made of iron, and we wouldn't know the difference between winter and summer, except for the leaves on the trees. Some predictions seem to be more cryptic though. She said that Ireland would become independent with the arrival of a sailing ship with her sails on fire.
Local folklore maintains that if someone were to walk around the grave 7 times clockwise and then 7 times anti-clockwise before placing their hand through the hole in the centre, then Julia's ghost would appear.
Regardless of whether visitors to the friary perform this ritual though, a ghost is seen in and around the old ruin from time to time. Locals have reported hearing strange noises when walking around the grounds, and the nun herself, dressed in her black robe, has been sighted on the stairs and wandering through the grounds of the friary. Witnesses have also seen her peering through the window on the upper floor. Many who have encountered Julia's spirit have reported a feeling of peace and well-being during and after their encounter. Others, however, feel differently. Here's one account from 2005 from a man who saw the nun. Whether you believe it or not, that's up to you. I'll leave you to be the judge. He said as follows: I was in Ballycastle last night with my future wife and her 2 nieces. My fiancé told the girls the story of the Black Nun as we passed Binary Friary. Like most chaps from Belfast, I thought it would be wonderful if I started to tell the 2 girls ghost stories. After a run in the car, we decided to head back into Ballycastle. To cement their imagination with stories of nuns and ghosts, we pulled into the lay-by and walked into the friary around dusk. We trooped around the ruins and came out into the church via the side entrance. We walked up towards the Black Nun's grave and past it to stand on the pathway. I stood facing my fiancé and the 2 girls when they let out an almighty scream. My first reaction was that my fiancé was attempting to startle me. She did. She then asked, "Did I see it?" "See what?" "The nun," she replied. I looked behind me and could only see a plastic bag. I then looked around the corner and, as clear as day, I saw a nun running into the side entrance where the famous stairs are. She was dressed in a nun's habit and sandals and had a white face. I absolutely froze in shock. My first reaction was that this is someone messing around. The place was deserted except for ourselves, and it was late and getting dark. I asked myself why someone would dress up in a full habit and sandals to play a prank, particularly at that time of night. And I didn't hear footsteps running. But why is Julia still here? Why does she haunt this place? To answer this question, we need to look into her death. Now, how she died is unknown, but there are a number of stories and accounts that paint rather a sinister picture. It seems Julia met her end on this staircase, which is now sealed off and has been for some time. This staircase is one of the hotspots for sightings of Julia, the stairs that she was seen running towards in that 2005 account. Some say that she slipped and fell while climbing the stairs, but others say that a loose rock fell and struck her. By accident perhaps, but many suspect it was murder. It was said that she died on the 13th step, and that bad luck will come to anyone that walks on it. In the early 2000s, a reporter was visiting this friary with his wife, and he was kneeling where I was, taking a picture of the grave, looking inwards to the chapel. And as he was doing so, a family who were also visiting the friary emerged from that entrance there, that doorway, not realising that he was taking a picture. So not wanting to ruin his shot, they took a few steps backwards to get out of the picture. The journalist named Brian Willis then took his shot, and the moment he did, he heard a rumble. Thinking nothing of it, he changed his lens to get a wider shot, and this is the picture he then took. You can see the family, now ignoring his photography, walking at high speed towards him. They asked Mr. Willis if he'd heard the noise, then telling him that a stone fell right out of the wall in front of them. The journalist, his wife, and the family then walked back over to the passageway to investigate, and, true enough, a stone some 2 feet across had fallen from high up in the thick wall and split into several pieces at their feet. This is a picture of the 2 lads, James and Eamon, beside the stone that nearly killed them. The journalist went to the local police station to report what had happened. If this stone had fallen, then the whole passage might be unsafe and could collapse. The police were quick to take action and sealed off the passage,
and then informed the Heritage Department, who sealed it off permanently. Hence why we can't see this part of the passage now, and there's an iron gate here, just as there is stopping people from accessing the stairs. The following day, Mr. Willis spoke to a member of the Environment and Heritage staff about the rockfall and the fact that it hadn't come from the roof as he and the family had thought, but it had apparently popped out of the thick wall, somehow. The Heritage Department employee said these words to the reporter regarding the stone. Yes, almost as if it had been pushed from behind. All this begs the question though, could this stone have been pushed by the ghost of Julia, or was it something else? Given Julia's redemption arc and humility in the manner in which she's buried, alongside the feelings of peace people reportedly feel when seeing her, it strikes me as unlikely that she's trying to harm people. What is certainly very unsettling though, is the eerie similarity between this falling stone, or rather the pushed stone, and the circumstances in which Julia was suspected to have died. A loose stone fallen from above in exactly the same vicinity. Is there something else here? Something dark that doesn't want people living or visiting here? Could Julia have been killed by the same dark spirit that pushed the stone from the wall back in the early 2000s? Could Julia be unable to rest because of the tragic death she experienced? Could this dark presence be keeping her from moving on? One final interesting piece of history is the old legend that before the friary became disused and was abandoned, some monks hid treasure in the ground somewhere. Only one clue of the location remains. On the night of its concealment, a candle was placed in the eastern window, and the treasure was buried at the furthest limit to which the rays of light extended. Many have searched, but with no success. Lots of places have stories about buried treasure, and this is something that's often considered to be made up. But in the 1820s, there was an oak chest found in the ruins of the friary containing 14th century religious manuscripts. Perhaps this was the treasure from the legend, or perhaps there is gold buried here somewhere. Could this dark presence be guarding the treasure, fearing that people might find it and take it away? Who knows? Regardless though, this place certainly has an incredibly eerie feel to it, a feeling of being watched constantly. It's well recorded that the Black Nun haunts this ruin, but I feel that something else might be haunting it too. This place is where hundreds of men, women and children massacred on Rathlin Island were buried, piled into mass graves. It was said that there were so many bodies piled up here that the earth was as red as the newly tilled soil. Considering this, and the battles that were fought in and around this area, there must be a lot of negative energy here. We'll likely never know the truth of this place, what secrets it holds, but you could always try asking Julia. All you have to do is walk around her grave 7 times clockwise, 7 times back, and then place your hand through the hole, and she'll appear.